our circulation, our stem cells, our healthy gut microbiome, the ability for our DNA to protect ourselves, our bodies from the environment, and also our immune system. These systems, for us to reach our health potential, we want to make sure that they are not squashed inadvertently by foods that we have gotten used to eating. And so let's talk a little about some of those foods that actually impair our health defenses. That's probably the best way of thinking about what to avoid. Now, we know that added sugar is something that that taxes the body's metabolism, right? So if you have a little bit of sugar in fruit, from natural sugars, that's fine, because you're getting a lot of other stuff in fruit as well that in fact helps your metabolism and helps your body's ability to be able to digest and metabolize fructose and glucose and use that fuel into your body. But if you drink soda, to have those 10 teaspoons of refined sugar that are dissolved invisibly in whatever colored fluid we might be drinking, it tastes great, quenches your thirst. It kind of, our mental blueprint is that, this is something you use to slake your thirst on a hot summer day. And I can tell you that the hyperglycemic state, your body can't handle 10 teaspoons of sugar at the same time. And think about, the people that chug an entire can of soda, right? I mean, I've done it myself. There's no way that's good for us. So that overwhelms a lot of our systems. It overwhelms our stem cells. Our stem cells cannot adequately properly function to help us regenerate when there's too much sugar around. Sugar is a concentrated material. It's a solute, meaning that it's dissolved in water. And when there's a lot of things, think about it when you're in a swimming pool or you're in, or if you're swimming in the ocean for a long period of time, what happens? The water gets pulled out of your skin, or even in a bathtub, your skin gets wrinkly because you've sucked out all the water. And that's basically what happens to these cells in a high sugar environment in your blood. So I would say added sugar with sodas that are so popular, that is something that sits on your health defense systems. Too much sugar also literally damages the ecosystem of your gut microbiome, which is connected to your immunity. Unhappy gut, unhappy immunity. We all want to actually be as strong immunologically as possible. And then, by the way, let's kind of just take one step over to the kissing cousin of regular soda, which is diet soda, right? So here's the thing. I just told you, we might want to cut down or cut out regular soda. So what do people say? They say, well, don't worry, Dr. Lee, we just go over to the diet soda. No worries. I drink the diet version. It's much better for my metabolism. Well, science tells us it's not true. And the irony is that people who drink a lot of diet soda with the purpose of not getting a lot of carbs from refined sugar actually still gain weight. This is a kind of a paradox that now makes sense because scientists have figured out that many of the artificial sweeteners used in diet sodas actually harm our gut microbiome. And so when you're drinking that soda and that artificial sweetener, you get that sugar hit on your tongue to go to your brain. Man, it's pretty sweet. But all those chemicals go down your gut and they're feeding our gut bacteria. And the gut bacteria really don't like these synthetic compounds, these artificial sweeteners. And so they revolt. And as they're revolting, they're actually literally drowning in these artificial sweeteners. And that is bad enough because our gut bacteria actually, helps to lower inflammation, but our gut bacteria also controls metabolism, our insulin sensitivity. So when that gets upset, guess what? Our actual blood sugars raise and we actually have poorer metabolism of our energy and we actually start to gain weight anyway. So that's, kind of just two examples, but there's a lot of other foods that we might want to be careful about.
Can you just explain that term metabolism? Because it's something that I think the public hear a lot, but I think it's not always that well understood.
Glad you're asking that question. Here's what I will tell you, because I'm actually working on a project now on metabolism.
Yeah.
Metabolism isn't that well understood by doctors either. And it's actually not even that well understood by scientists. And that's part of the mystery of the human body, that gigantic question mark. What is our metabolism, right? So here we are thinking about metabolism, I think classically as energy. Our metabolism is, these are some assumptions. Our metabolism is something we're born with, I have a lot of body fat, so I got the unlucky straw in family genetics. Look at my sister. She's skinny as a stick. She's lucky she inherited the thin gene for her metabolism, right? So that's one assumption that we make about metabolism. And that infers, and it's wrong, by the way, but that infers that our body's metabolism is the machinery that's used to take energy that we put into our body, that's our food that we eat, how our body processes that energy in order to be able to load up on fuel, and then how our body takes that fuel in the fuel tank, like filling the gas tank with petrol, and then actually uses that fuel as we get on the highway and drive. That's not incorrect, okay? But what we're really beginning to realize is that metabolism is a lot more complicated than that, because it's connected to our immune system. It's connected to our inflammation. It's connected to our ability to actually maintain our health, in the sense that body fat is not necessarily bad. It's actually really good. And so many of the assumptions of metabolism, energy, and all the negative aspects of it, an athlete who's in his top shape has got great metabolism, whereas somebody who actually is obese has terrible metabolism. Not as simple as we thought.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think that's really, really helpful. So in terms of categories and types of foods that we should think about limiting or avoiding, the first thing you went to was those drinks with added sugar, soft drinks, fizzy drinks, soda, in whatever country you're in, however you like to refer to it. I hope it's generally well known that actually those things are damaging for our health, our immune system, our teeth. And you beautifully explained why that is. Now, before we go to diet drinks, because I'm really glad you brought that up, full sugar fizzy drinks, is it just the sugar that's causing problems because it overwhelms our system and we can't process it? Or is it something else? Is it the sugar and the chemicals and the impact they have on other aspects of our body's health, and potentially those 5 defense systems that you've written beautifully about in your book? What's going on there? Is it just the sugar, or is it something else?
Yeah. The soft drinks, the sodas that we see so commonly around us, it's part of everyday modern life, for the last 100 years or so. It's interesting. The history of soda is really fascinating. It dates back into Europe, where people were trying to find additional ways to be surprised and delighted by beverages, right? So the traditional drinks were always tea or coffee. Of course, the most popular beverage in the world is just drinking water, the most important one actually as well, tea and coffee following close behind. And then there was wine. Right. I mean, these were for thousands of years sort of the elixirs, so to speak, of our beverages. And carbonation was actually added to fruit juice. First, it was a mistake, I think, that was made when they invented it. But then actually it became something to delight folks, kind of like you go to a carnival, and you see some spectacle that actually is just something you walk by and you think, oh my gosh, that's so unusual. That's delightful. That's how sodas were actually drank. And then once actually the big industries came in and turned it into a marketing buzz, it started to take on a life of its own. And here's where it morphed. Went from fruit juices that actually had some carbonation, which is just gas, CO2, and that's okay. But what wound up happening is that they started to have less fruit, but they figured out how to put chemical flavorings that actually mimic the fruit flavoring. And then, of course, nobody really wants to have just a plain watery looking carbonated drink. So then they started to add artificial coloring, and then they started to add preservatives. And this goes to the importance of reading a label. Whenever I actually pick up something to drink, from a store, a grocery store, I'm an explorer, so I love to actually try new things. If I saw a drink in a store that seemed appealing or attractive or intriguing to me, I might pick it up. But the first thing I do is I take a look at the label. What is in there, right? So it should be mostly water. So I look for that. And then many people don't know this, but the order in which the ingredients appear on a label, at least in the United States, is synonymous with their relative concentration in the drink. And so what you want to do is, it's usually water, and then it's sugar. All right. So we just talked about that, or artificial sweetener. And then you start seeing the other things behind it. And I think most people will be astounded and disappointed, rightfully so, that natural fruit juice is usually pretty low on a list of 10 or 20 ingredients. And so if you're creeped out by not being able to pronounce, understand, identify the ingredients on a beverage, you should follow your instincts. That's probably not something you want to put in your body, because your body's not hardwired to handle those chemicals.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, something I use with my patients as well. People say there's always exceptions. Yeah, there are exceptions, but as a general principle when looking at ingredient labels, I completely echo that. If you don't recognize it, maybe give it a miss and choose something else instead. You also mentioned marketing there when you were talking about fizzy drinks, and that really is something that we're fighting. You are trying to promote all this incredible, colorful food, but what we're fighting is this marketing machine, and in particularly around, I guess, soft drinks and fizzy drinks and sodas. It's really tragic to see sports stars who are looked up to by children. You certainly have seen this in the UK for many years. You see this in a big way in India, where like the big cricket stars are often sponsored and are seen drinking a can of soda. And actually, I think this is one of the big problems we're up against, because that just infuses into these young kids' mind that actually I want to be like that person. Oh, they're drinking that drink. Oh, I want to drink that and be like them. How much of a problem do you think marketing is? Sponsorship, product placement, commercial deals. Is that something we need to be fighting against?
I think that we all have the freedom, most of us, to make our own choices. And I try to think about any argument, such as the one we're discussing now, from both sides of the coin. If you run a company and then your company is making a product, your job is to market it, whether it's a soda or whether it's a tennis shoe or whether it's a wristwatch, right? On one hand, I don't blame companies for actually doing marketing, and the ones that actually do it really well, hey, you know what? That's their job. Okay. On the other hand, I think that the fight that we're actually having is not really against the company. The fight is really against the inertia that many of us have in the community to do our homework on and to get back in touch with our body. Because I think that if we actually, took a look in the mirror and started to reacquaint ourselves with what our body is telling us. I mean, look, here's how I think about it. You get up in the morning, you take a shower, you step out of the shower, you're going to see the mirror. You look in that mirror. Most people aren't that happy. Most people are not that happy with what they see. They can always find something wrong with themselves, and then you might step on a scale and you might not like that number. Okay. And then you're like, those are the few moments of clarity in a day where you might actually be thinking about yourself. And then we get dressed and we go off and we're just swept up with the rest of our lives, whether it's our jobs, whether it's our families, whether it's other responsibilities. And we leave ourselves behind. Oftentimes we deprioritize what our body needs. And I think that one of the things, the inertia we're fighting against, is actually all those other distractions in our life. I actually think that, one of the things that we could do to teach children, and one of the things we could do to teach young parents, one of the things we could do to help teachers, whether it's grade school, high school, or college or beyond, is to really reemphasize the fact that we all need to be in touch with our bodies. We need to know ourselves first. Knowing yourself first allows you to then discern whether or not a message that you're seeing on television or being promoted by a sports star, or whether something that is being marketed to you in a grocery store is something that you want to partake in, right? And so I think that, yes, we should be vigilant, and we should enact policies that prevent predatory marketing practices to people that are uninformed and are highly vulnerable, like marketing to children, with certain ads like that. I think that is something that works, and therefore it's something that really we do need to actually push back against. But on the other hand, I think companies are just doing their job. I think that we have our own decision. We need to push back on the predatory practices of companies that are preying on the vulnerable. And we also need to be able to lift up the consumers so that they are smarter, wiser, more in touch with themselves, and then they actually can discern what they should be ordering or buying that can actually help themselves.
If you enjoyed watching that clip, here's another powerful clip that I think you will also really enjoy.
The whole idea of reducing sugar by just adding unlimited amounts of these chemicals has to be thought through, and we should be weaning people off ultra-sweetened products, which make them more likely, particularly kids, to seek sugar.